Helping me with my bike, Ricardo grunted, taking a long swig. He's been coming around for a few months. Why him? Marisol's voice was high and tight. Has he asked about me? Did you tell him I was coming home? Ricardo narrowed his eyes. Why are you asking so many questions? Why would we be talking about you? Marisol didn't wait for an answer. She turned and ran back into the house, slamming her bedroom door and locking it. She collapsed onto her bed, the old spring screaming. She had come home to get away from one monster, only to find the ghost of her greatest sin waiting in the backyard. I'm dead, she whispered into her pillow. I am absolutely dead. The house didn't feel like a home anymore. It felt like a trap. Marisol stayed in her room, staring at the ceiling, until the screen door groaned open. The squeak of worn sneakers across the kitchen floor told her exactly who it was. Mom was home. Marisol! Her mother pulled her into a tight hug. Even after an 8-hour shift, the heavy scent of bacon grease couldn't mask the vanilla perfume she wore specifically because Ricardo liked it. You made it back. Safe and sound, Marisol replied, pulling back. Her mother reached out, brushing a stray hair from Marisol's forehead with a small, knowing chuckle. Oh, look at that. You're getting a wrinkle. Marisol frowned. A wrinkle? Well, if you keep creasing your brow like that, you'll just make it worse. Her mother tapped the spot between Marisol's eyes. I'm 18, Mom. I don't have wrinkles, Marisol retorted. She fought the urge to run to the bathroom mirror. It took less than a minute for the criticism to start. Her mother shrugged, a small, amused smile playing on her lips. It was the look she always wore when she knew she'd gotten under Marisol's skin. Hey, it's not my fault, honey. You can thank your father for that. You definitely got his skin. Marisol felt the conversation drifting toward the usual bitter territory. She quickly changed the subject. You look tired, Mom. Have you been sleeping? It wasn't a jab. Her mother's brown eyes looked dull, and her skin had a sallow tint. The most telling sign was the dark brown roots creeping down her scalp. For years, her mother had bleached her hair to match the ashy blonde Marisol had naturally. She loved telling people they were twins. She always took credit for Marisol's best features and blamed her father for the rest. I've been picking up extra shifts at the diner, her mother sighed. One of the cooks quit. We're understaffed, and the tips are terrible. People aren't generous when they have to wait 30 minutes for a burger. I'm sorry, Mom. Maybe I can find a part-time job while I'm... No. Her mother waved her off dismissively. It'll work itself out. You need to get back to that big, fancy boarding school. You just worry about your free massages and manicures. I can take care of myself. Marisol flinched as her mother turned away. She always had to have the last word. Her mother tossed her work apron onto a kitchen chair just as Ricardo walked into the room. Her face lit up instantly. She leaned over and gave him a long kiss on the cheek. Oh, honey! How was your day? The house looks great. That was so nice of you to clean up. Ricardo gave a low grunt of agreement. Marisol felt a sting of annoyance. She was the one who had spent the morning scrubbing the place, but Ricardo was happy to take the credit. What's for dinner? Ricardo asked, ignoring Marisol entirely. Well, Mom looked at Marisol. What are you feeling, sweetie? It's your first night back. You pick. Marisol shrugged, trying to keep the peace. Something simple. Maybe a grilled cheese? I haven't had real bread in months. Her mother's smile widened. You're in luck. I think there's just enough cheese left. Marisol knew that. She had checked the cabinets earlier. The kitchen was nearly empty. Her mother glanced at Ricardo. That sound okay, honey? Ricardo popped open a beer. You know I don't like putting that crap in my body, he said gruffly. His growing beer gut suggested otherwise. You said you were making chicken sliders? Mom's smile faltered. We're out of chicken. I'd need to get buns, too. Ricardo didn't look up from his beer. I could run to the store. Mom continued, her voice hopeful. See if there's a sale. She looked at Marisol. Would you be okay with sliders instead? Marisol felt a familiar knot in her stomach. It was a small thing, but it was the same story every time. Whether it was Eduardo, Esteban, or Ricardo, Marisol never came first. Sliders are fine, Marisol said, forcing a smile. She had 3 weeks left in this house. This wasn't the hill to die on. In fact, let me go. You just got off work. You're tired. There's no reason for you to run errands for Ricardo. Ricardo muttered something under his breath, but Marisol ignored him as she grabbed the car keys. That would be helpful, honey, her mother said. She grabbed Marisol's sleeve before she could leave. And Marisol? Yeah? I know you two don't always get along. But please, don't antagonize your stepfather. Marisol hated that word. Stepfather. Ricardo didn't have a paternal bone in his body. Instead of arguing, Marisol steered the conversation somewhere useful. Do you know why Ivan Castillo is helping Ricardo in the garage? Her mother blinked. Oh, Ivan. Right. Ricardo's been trying to fix that old bike for months. I told you about it on the phone. Marisol gave her a blank look. If she had heard Ivan's name, she would have remembered. You never listened to me. Her mother sighed. Juan Castillo recommended him. Ivan's a smart kid. He restores old cars for extra cash. Ricardo says he's a genius with engines. So he's here a lot? Marisol asked. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, her mother answered. Since school is out for break, he's been here more often. 3 days a week. Marisol could handle that. She could just avoid the garage. Why are you so interested in Ivan? Her mother's eyes sparkled with sudden mischief. Do you think he's cute? No. Marisol shook her head quickly. The last thing she needed was her mother playing matchmaker with Ivan Castillo. I just wasn't expecting a random teenager in the garage. That's all. She headed for the door, but her mother stopped her one last time. Didn't you two go to school together? Marisol froze. What? Not at your fancy school, obviously. But middle school? I think you were in the same grade. Marisol rubbed the back of her neck. Yeah. Just middle school. We weren't friends. We didn't even have classes together. It was a half-truth. While the other kids were struggling with basic math, Ivan had been sent to the high school for advanced geometry. Marisol knew exactly how smart Ivan was. She knew it better than anyone. By Thursday, the silence from Ariana was becoming deafening. Marisol sat on her bed, trying to sketch, but she kept checking her phone. It had been 4 days. No calls. No texts. Not even a sign that he was still alive. She told herself it didn't bother her. She was the one who asked for space. She needed time to think without him buying her expensive bags and whispering promises in her ear. But at school, he had been everywhere. Now, he had vanished. Maybe he changed his mind, she thought. The idea made her chest tighten. Ariana had decided he loved her in a heartbeat. What if he decided he was bored just as fast? Without him, she was back to being an outsider with nothing but secrets. She groaned and tossed her phone aside. She was acting just like her mother, and that thought was terrifying. She didn't need Ariana. Her phone dinged. Her heart leaped, but the disappointment hit just as hard when she saw it was a text from her mom. I spoke to Ricardo. He's concerned you might be on drugs because of how you've been acting. If that's true, I'm extremely disappointed. We will talk tonight. Marisol felt a surge of pure rage. Ricardo was already trying to get her kicked out. He was feeding her mother lies about behavior, to cover for his own resentment. Fine, Marisol whispered. Two can play at that. She headed straight for the garage. She knew Ricardo's truck was gone. He had left an hour ago. She knew exactly where he kept his stash. She opened the second drawer of his toolbox and found 3 full packs of cigarettes hidden behind the wrenches. Ricardo's smoking was the one thing her mother hated. If they went missing, her mother wouldn't buy him more. She grabbed the packs, feeling a spark of spiteful triumph. Did I just walk in on a heist? Marisol jumped, nearly dropping the cigarettes. She recognized that voice. It was low and slightly raspy. She turned around and saw Ivan Castillo leaning against the doorframe. The shadows of the shed made him look taller than he was. Ivan, Marisol said, her voice shaky. Hey! What are you doing here? Ivan shrugged. Got off work early. Thought I'd help Ricardo with the bike. He looked at the cigarettes in her hand, then back at her face. I haven't seen you around here. Marisol felt a small wave of relief. He didn't recognize her. Not yet. I'm Magdalena's daughter, she said. She held up the packs. Don't tell Ricardo about these, okay? Ivan grinned, showing a small gap between his front teeth. Don't worry. I know Ricardo. Whatever you're doing, he probably deserves it. Thanks. Marisol tried to brush past him to get back to the house. Marisol. She stopped. Her heart felt like it was sinking through the floor. Marisol Davis, Ivan said, snapping his fingers. I remember now. We went to school together. Marisol's pulse hammered in her ears. Oh. Yeah. I guess we did. It's the hair, Ivan said, stepping closer. It was driving me crazy. You look exactly the same as you did in middle school. Hair white as a ghost. I used to see you across the lunchroom. You stick out. So I've been told, Marisol muttered. You don't go to the local high school, do you? Ivan asked. He looked genuinely curious. Marisol shook her head. The longer she stood here, the more dangerous this became. No. Where then? Marisol swallowed hard. I go to Leonara Heights. Ivan's jaw dropped. Leonara Heights? Like the prep school in Connecticut? Yeah. You're not joking? Ivan stepped forward, and Marisol instinctively backed against the workbench. How did you get in? The acceptance rate is tiny. And the tuition is insane. You must be on a huge scholarship. Marisol felt sick. Ivan had no idea. He didn't know she was living his dream. I applied, she said vaguely. Did you take the SSAT? What was the process like? Ivan sighed and ran a hand through his hair. Sorry. I'm bombarding you. It's just, I tried to get into Leonara Heights a few years ago. My counselor thought I had a real shot. I took the test and everything. He gave a hollow laugh. Obviously, it didn't work out. The guilt hit Marisol like a physical blow. She had spent years imagining his life, but seeing the disappointment on his face was worse. I'm so sorry, Ivan, she whispered. Don't be. It's my own fault. I just didn't test well that day. He shrugged, but Marisol could see the weight of that failure in his eyes. I didn't think I failed, though, Ivan added, looking thoughtful. That's the weird part. I walked out of that room thinking I aced it. Then the results came back, and they were terrible. Like, couldn't get into any school bad. Marisol winced. Ivan hadn't done poorly. She had done poorly. And she had swapped their names. Anyway, Ivan said, giving her a small smile. It's impressive you made it out of this town. Good for you. Thanks, Marisol managed to say. You're lucky you didn't take the test the year I did, Ivan said. There was a huge incident. The girl sitting next to me had a massive allergic reaction right when we were finishing. Ambulances, sirens, everyone screaming. We all had to be rushed out. It was total chaos. Marisol felt the blood drain from her face. Sounds intense. It was. I wish I could blame my score on the distraction, but the test was already done. The roar of Ricardo's truck sounded in the driveway. I have to go, Marisol said quickly. Go on, Ivan nodded. I'll distract Ricardo so he doesn't see the cigarettes. Marisol ran back to her room and hid the packs behind her bookshelf. Her hands were shaking. He didn't remember her. He remembered the girl who had the allergic reaction, the distraction she had caused on purpose. But he didn't remember that Marisol was the one sitting 2 rows away. She was the reason he was fixing junk bikes in a dusty garage instead of studying at the best school in the country. She had stolen his life, and he was being nice to her. Marisol sat on her bed and waited for the panic to pass, praying he would never put the pieces together. "Don't tell Ricardo about the heist, okay? Marisol, honey, we're just concerned about you." Magdalena sat across the kitchen table, her hands folded tightly in her lap. She wore a look that practically begged for a confession. "Ricardo is concerned too." Marisol let out a long, dry breath. "Right. He's so concerned that he can't even leave the garage to talk about it." It was classic Ricardo. He was a man who believed every conspiracy theory on the internet, but was a master at planting seeds of doubt in Magdalena's mind. He knew exactly how to turn a mother's worry into a weapon Marisol had to dodge. Magdalena shook her head, her expression darkening. "I'm being serious. I don't know what those rich kids at that fancy school are doing, but I won't have a daughter who's messed up on drugs. Just because you're 18 doesn't mean—" "I am not on drugs, Mom." Marisol felt her patience snapping like a dry twig. It was the 5th time she'd said it. "Ricardo says you've been paranoid. He says you're argumentative, and you hide in your room for hours," Magdalena countered, her voice rising. "Ricardo has no idea what he's talking about." Magdalena crossed her arms, a clear sign she was entering her defend the husband mode. "Marisol, don't speak about your stepfather that way. I trust his opinion." Marisol leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "Over mine?" Magdalena hesitated, her mouth opening and closing. "Now, that's not fair. You either believe Ricardo, or you believe me," Marisol said. It was a dangerous game to play in this house, but she was tired of being the villain in Ricardo's twisted narrative. Magdalena sighed and rubbed the bridge of her nose. The shadows under her eyes seemed to deepen in the harsh kitchen light. "Marisol, please. I know he's concerned," Marisol said, the word feeling like ash in her mouth. "But I'm not high. I stay in my room so I can draw in peace. I go to the library to work on college applications. And I don't need to be on anything to realize that Ricardo and I don't get along." For a second, it looked like Magdalena was backing down. But then she reached across the table and placed her hand over Marisol's. "It's not just him," Magdalena whispered. "There's something different about you. You aren't the same girl I saw last summer. When I look at you, you look haunted." Marisol felt her heart skip a beat. Her composure wavered. For a terrifying moment, she wondered if her mother could see everything: the lies about school, the secrets about Mateo's death, and the chaotic, magnetic pull of Ariana Elfrida. Then, the screen door slammed open with a violent rattle. "Where is my stuff?" Ricardo stomped into the kitchen, his face a bright, angry red. The heavy silence of the moment shattered instantly. "Ricardo?" Magdalena asked, startled. Ricardo stopped at the edge of the table, glaring. "My smokes. They're gone. Someone took them from the garage, and I want them back now." His eyes darted between Magdalena and Marisol, trying to decide who to blame first. Magdalena's sympathy for him vanished. "You're making a scene over cigarettes? Really, Ricardo?" "They're gone, Magdalena. I know where I put them." Ricardo turned his full attention to Marisol. Did you take them?" Marisol rolled her eyes, leaning back in her chair. "How would I know? I'm too busy being a paranoid addict, remember?" Ricardo pointed a thick finger at her. "Don't you get smart with me, you little—" "That's enough." Magdalena stood up, cutting him off. "Ricardo, you've been trying to quit anyway. We don't have the money for them. Just let it go." Before Ricardo could launch into a fresh rant, a sharp knock sounded at the door. Magdalena groaned, heading toward the front of the trailer. "If that's the neighbor looking to borrow more sugar, I'm saying no." Marisol watched her mother walk away, feeling a small, petty victory. She looked at Ricardo and gave him a slow, deliberate wink. She hoped the nicotine withdrawals were miserable. Ricardo's eyes bulged. "You, sweetheart?" Marisol's smugness died a sudden death. She turned around, the floor feeling like it was tilting beneath her feet. Ariana Elfrida was standing in her kitchen, looking like he just stepped off a movie set. Marisol, Magdalena said, her voice sounding dangerously sweet. You didn't tell me your boyfriend was coming to visit. 5 minutes later, the world still hadn't stopped spinning. Ariana was sitting on their lumpy, second-hand couch as if it were a throne. He was looking at a tacky love sign as if it were a masterpiece. Your home is very charming, Miss Davis, he said smoothly. Marisol felt a sharp pang in her chest. There was nothing charming about this cramped trailer. The walls were stained with years of smoke, and the furniture was falling apart. The only nice thing in the room was the bunch of sunflowers Ariana had brought with him. Magdalena's smile was a little tight. It's not much, I know. Actually, this couch is far more comfortable than the one my mother imported from overseas, Ariana said, leaning back. It has much better character. Marisol watched as Magdalena's shoulders relaxed. Ariana was doing it. He was turning on the charm, and it was working perfectly. Well, aren't you a sweetheart? Magdalena teased. She looked at his sharp jawline and his expensive linen shirt. And handsome, too. I see Marisol has good taste. Marisol's jaw tightened. She wanted to tell her mother to stop looking at him. He was a shark in a suburban pond. Don't blame Marisol for the surprise, Ariana said, his dark eyes locking onto hers. She had no idea I was coming. I know it's a bit much to show up like this. If I'm intruding, I can leave. Oh, don't be silly. Magdalena laughed, reaching out to pat his shoulder. We're just surprised. Right, Ricardo? Ricardo looked like he wanted to be anywhere else, but he just crossed his arms and grunted. Thank you for having me, Ariana said, his smile bright enough to light up the room. Magdalena leaned in closer. What was your last name again, dear? Elfrida, ma'am. Magdalena froze. Her eyes went wide, and her jaw actually dropped. Elfrida? Like the ones in the magazines? The developers? That's my family, yes. Magdalena let out a shocked laugh and squeezed his arm. Oh, forget MS, Davis. You call me Magdalena. Marisol felt a wave of nausea. She wasn't sure what was worse, that Ariana was in her house, or that her mother was already obsessed with him. Marisol finally managed to pull Ariana into her tiny bedroom and slammed the door shut. Her anger, which had been simmering under the surface, finally boiled over. What are you doing here? She hissed. Ariana didn't look bothered. He was busy looking at the old photos on her dresser. You are a very cute kid, he remarked. And I didn't know you liked old Hollywood stars. I don't, Marisol snapped, snatching an old photo of herself in a wig out of his hands. And all this green? He pointed to her old sketches taped to the wall. It was the only color of pencils I could afford back then, she said, her face heating up. He moved toward her bed and pressed a hand into the mattress. The old springs groaned loudly. Ariana looked at her with a raised eyebrow. You don't actually sleep on this, do you? My bed is fine, Marisol said, her voice a sharp whisper. Are you done with the tour? Why are you here, Ariana? You're invading my life. Ariana stepped closer, his presence filling the small room. He reached out, sliding his hands around her waist. Can't a guy just miss his girlfriend? The heat of his touch was like a physical blow. After a week of silence, her body wanted to give in, but her mind was still screaming. I know what you're doing, she said, her voice shaking. You're trying to distract me so I won't be mad. Is it working? He whispered, leaning down. Marisol let him kiss her neck for exactly 3 seconds before she pushed him away. No. It's not. You didn't call. You didn't text. I asked for space. I gave you a week, Ariana countered. I wanted 3. And I wanted to see you, he said, a smirk playing on his lips. He wasn't taking her seriously. Marisol felt a fresh wave of frustration. Fine. You want to play? If you don't leave right now, I'm going to walk out there, start crying, and tell my mother you cheated on me. She'll have Ricardo throw you out in 10 seconds. The smirk vanished from Ariana's face. Is that so? Try me. She hates cheaters. Ariana paused, then tilted his head. Well, if we're playing that way, I'll just tell her about the baby we're expecting. I wonder who she'll believe then? Marisol went cold. You wouldn't. I can make a scene just as well as you can, Marisol. And your mom seems to really like me. Marisol realized with a sinking heart that he was right. Magdalena had spent an hour believing Ricardo over her own daughter. She'd definitely believe a charming billionaire over Marisol. You're unbelievable, Marisol whispered. Everything is a power struggle with you. I wanted a few weeks to feel like I was on solid ground, and you couldn't even give me that.